Welcome everyone to today's presentation. This is on productivity tools for storm and sanitary design in Civil 3D. I'm Brian Lewandowski. I'm the Civil Product Manager at CTC Software, and I will be doing the presentation for you today. First thing I want to do is talk just a moment about Civil 3D pipe networks, and specifically some of the pros and cons of them, because the tools I want to talk to you about from CTC really address what we see are some of these cons. So what are some of the pros of Civil 3D pipe networks? Well, they're 3D parts, and while we don't print them so much in 3D, the fact that they are 3D, getting cross sections and profiles and everything from a single part is great. We almost take that for granted when we're using pipe networks, but that's a nice part of them. They have a lot of detailed properties in them. The structures, the pipes, all of our invert and material information and part type information, it's all in there. And it allows us to get all kinds of detailed labeling, tabling, exports, what have you, right? So they're nice 3D parts with a lot of information in them. But what are some of the cons? Well, while they're nice parts, they're not really design tools. They don't allow us to design storm or sanitary lines in the way we like to think about them, which is entire pipe runs or sets of pipes and structures, where we're setting particular slopes or inverts or different things like that. And what we have to do, them not being design tools, what it means is we have to edit really each of these parts one at a time. Change a pipe slope. Now you can do it in pipe properties. You can do it in that pipe network vista. But either way, you're doing this always one at a time. And while it updates everything, our labels and so forth, they're not really design tools. And so that's what we want to address here today, is to try to show you how to make these things work more like a design tool and allow you to edit them more quickly. So I'm going to walk you through a few tools. The first one here is called Pipe Designer, and this is probably one of our most popular tools. And what it is a tool that allows you to design by pipe runs and not one part at a time. It's really how you think of it when you're talking storm or sanitary lines or most any kind of gravity system. It gives us this Excel-like interface where we can do mass editing across multiple pipes and structures at once. And I'm going to show you it in detail right in Civil 3D, but I just want to introduce it to you first. We can be selecting pipe runs in plan or profile view, however you want to work. Oftentimes we're laying things out in plan, and then we might design the vertical and profile view. Either or, you can do any of that. The next tool is called Parts Tagger, and this is about managing or editing those properties of all those parts, right? Like we said, one of the great things about pipe networks is all the information within that allows us to quantify or tabulate or label. But a lot of those pieces of information, we have to edit them one at a time. Really tedious when we've got a 50 or 75 part pipe network. The application most of the time, Parts Tagger, are all those properties that are project specific, right? So some things, you've got a standard set of RCP for your storm pipe, right? So you're not necessarily editing the size or material, but you might be editing the Manning's coefficient. Or with structures, you might be editing reference alignments. You might be editing the casting or or a surface adjustment value, any number of things. You might be editing on a project-specific basis. So it works with both structures and pipes. And then the last one, and this is actually a free tool as part of the CIM Project Suite, it's called Part Swapper. And it's as simple as just allowing you to swap multiple parts at once. Natively, you can only do this one at a time. Again, another tedious part. If I just simply want to grab an entire set of pipes and change the size on them, I should be able to do that and not have to do it one by one. I can do it in plan and or profile, one or the other, both at a time, or I could swap an entire network at once. So those are the tools we're going to talk about. Let's jump into Civil 3D and let me walk you through how those work in some common design scenarios. So the first example here, I've got a roadway project, and I've got a storm line with some laterals off of it. Then I've got a sanitary line running down the middle. And oftentimes we lay this out first in plan, and perhaps we throw it in profile, and we make edits, we swap out some parts, and we need to control or manage our pipe network. And so Pipe Designer, the way it works, you launch it from the ribbon up here. I'll go ahead and pick this. And I want to highlight just how it allows you to select. So it says select first connected part. So I can go in plan or profile. Let's go in profile. And I'm going to pick it over here, and you see it highlights. And then it says select next part. So I'm defining a pipe run. So if I pick structure 6 down here, it's going to highlight everything in between, and that'll be my pipe run that it loads. I could also continue picking down the line, and it would highlight everything within. So it's like that alignment from network tool, where you just pick the starting and the end. It generates alignment for you. Here you pick the starting and the end, and it highlights everything within. You can start with a pipe, with a structure, either way, whatever your setup is. Now, if you're selecting and you don't like what you chose, there's an undo option. You can click or just simply hit U in the command line, and it backs out of your selection set in the order you picked it. So if I go all the way back, I'm here to select the first one. So maybe I wanted to go from the low structure and go up in this case. So it's going to load it however you choose it. This is a storm line. We're going to go from high invert to low invert. We're going to design downstream, and I can select that entire network. When I hit enter, it loads Pipe Designer, and it brings all the parts into this Excel type interface. Now there's a number of things going on here. The first thing you're going to notice is this big table, this big spreadsheet of sorts. It's loading all the structures. That's the first set of columns here. It's loading all the pipes. That's the second set of columns. And then you can also have it display the rules and the status of those rules as you're editing the parts here. So how does it work? So structures, you can kind of see there's a bit of a cascading view here. It's structures, and then the pipe, and structure, pipe. This kind of cascading view in the order I chose. Now, if I would have chose from low invert up, the low invert would have been the first structure in the top of the table here. So however you're thinking about it, that's how Pipe Designer will load it. And it is like an Excel spreadsheet with formulas in it. So the white fields, these are editable fields. The gray fields are calculated fields. So if I have a starting invert here of 778 and I drop this, or excuse me, at 779, I drop it to 778, watch what happens to all the fields, the inverts of the pipes, the inverts of the downstream structures. I do 778, so I dropped it a foot, and I tab through that. All the inverts will change. Okay, so I'm starting with my first structure here, and then it cascades through and calculates all those other values. If I hit apply to this, we'll see down here, we'll see this entire pipe network drop a foot, but still maintaining that exact design. And oftentimes we're swapping out parts and putting in different things, and we load our pipe network and things aren't, we don't have the right slope on some of these. You can see that slope right here. So I can do Excel type functions in here, like press and drag this 0.9% if that was to be held across the entire pipe run, or maybe for the larger pipes it's to be negative 0.4%. I can press and drag that. All the while when I'm doing that, these gray fields are updating within the interface. Not until I hit apply or OK does it write to all my parts. So I can hit apply to this, and now we're going to see a big change in all these parts. Now I've got other factors at play here. I've got drop. That's my invert drop across a structure. Common value is to do 0.1. So we'll press and drag and set those to 0.1. Then you'll notice had one of my structures, it was really deep. It wasn't supposed to be that. It was supposed to be a zero sump. Okay, and so we can zero those out as well. Now I'm pressing and dragging. We could be doing a copy and paste, like a Control-C, Control-V on the clipboard, either way. And you can see how quickly I can take an entire pipe run and move it around, manipulate it like it's one, large model. Now the information that's displaying in the tables here, you can come up here to show hide columns and decide what you want displaying. So I've got the structure name. I could have description. Perhaps I want to see the structure build as well. And then when I'm looking at my pipes, I want to think about minimum and maximum cover as well. So a lot of pieces of information go into my design decisions. So I'll hit OK to that, and now we'll see minimum and max cover showing up. And furthermore, I said I've got these rules over here. What if I want this to highlight rule violations? So if I turn that on, it's going to highlight the rule violations. Now, what are those rules? These are just the native tools that come with Civil 3D. Meaning, if I jump into one of these parts here, look at the structure properties. Here's my rule set assigned to that part. Here it's coming up with the drop value, the minimum and the max, the maximum pipe size for that structure. And then for parts, or for pipes rather, as well, we've got rule sets there. Minimum, maximum slopes and covers, lengths. Okay, so you set these for what you want. What are those design constraints? Pipe Designer will read them, and then if you choose, it will flag them or highlight them in red if you've violated them. So let's load Pipe Designer again. And I've got some length violations there. Perhaps we'll see what happens here. Let's see. Yeah, so there's a slope that's too flat for the 42-inch. I've got a 0.1%, and it'll highlight as you change it. Okay. And put it back to within those constraints. The highlighting goes away. Same for everything else. Minimum, maximum cover. Perhaps this was a lot deeper. Now there's a max cover. That's a really deep storm line there. And it's highlighting that because that's what's called out in my rule set. So very quickly I can manipulate entire pipe runs. Now there's different design methods here. If we look up here to the design method, there's slopes and elevations. Now the main difference here is just what part you're editing of the pipes and structures. So watch what happens when I click on elevations. You'll see the slope in the inverts column swap on the pipes. You'll see what's highlighted in gray, meaning calculated values, and then what is editable, meaning the white cells or the white values. So if I'm doing elevations, that's where I can control each pipe by its single elevation. So maybe I'm typing in some as-built information. And if you don't want to work with invert, maybe it's top of pipe information you want to show. Watch as I click this, it's going to automatically read what the top of pipe elevation is for that part. Okay, and now I can type in different values here and edit in this way. Okay, and then the slope is what's calculated when we're in elevations method. I can also have crown or invert. Similar, I've got structures over here. What do I want calculated and what I want to be able to edit? By default, it's going to sump, meaning I can set a constant sump. If there's some sedimentation capture we want, we could set a 1 or 2 foot sump, for example. Or maybe I want to switch this to invert, and now invert can be typed in and sump will be calculated. Okay, so it depends on the scenario. Back to slopes method, we have options here as well. There's match inverts or match crowns obverts. And this comes into play when we're dealing with a scenario like a small pipe, It's 24 inch going into on a 42 inch. Oftentimes we design by matching crowns. So like this structure 6, if we grab this and we've got these zoom options as well, we can zoom to that particular structure. And right here, by designing by matching crowns is often hydraulically a lot more preferable. We don't want to match inverts. And so we want to match crowns. Now I switched to match crowns, and what showed up was another column here. And this is my crown matching factor. Now as you switch these methods here, it doesn't change your design. It's just calculating the values and popping them in there. Okay. And now you'll notice my drop, or my invert drop, in a match crowns method across structure 6 is negative 1.1. Okay, so if I'm matching crowns, I still want to perhaps hold that constant 0.1 foot drop. And when I hit apply here, you're going to see that change. Okay, now if you're not familiar with the factor is, okay, if the factor is set to 1, then crowns will match exactly. Or at least they will just be the difference of the drop value here. Okay, so now those crowns are matching exactly, except for the difference of 0.1 feet. A crown factor of 0.5 would be matching center to center. And as you guessed it, a crown matching factor of 0 would be match inverts. Okay, so oftentimes 0.8 or 0.75 are fairly common crown matching factors that we can plug in. And as you're loading these pipe networks, we've put another option in here too, which is to do a load with a constant factor. And which one should it be? So maybe you design with 0.7 or 0.75, or do I load with a constant drop? Because both of these can affect the relationship of the pipe inverts on either side of the structure. So we have to tell it to pick one, and then it'll calculate the other on initial load of Pipe Designer. So obviously when we've got pipes of the same size here, and a crown matching factor of 0.8, these are 24 inches here, there is no difference. It's just that 0.1 foot drop that we applied, and there it is. So what the factor is it's multiplied by the difference in diameters of the incoming and outgoing pipes, and then that value is shifted, meaning the outgoing larger pipe is shifted upwards to give you a more preferable design. So all those design methods are possible here. We can work with it. So what about a few other scenarios, right? That was kind of a storm design scenario for working with sanitary. I'd shown you this earlier. We can pick in either direction. So often in sanitary, we might be designing from a low invert, designing upstream. So I could grab this and grab my entire sanitary pipe run. Again, we've got controls on what values are showing here. If you don't like the order these are coming in as, I can grab and cut a column and paste it, move it around. Okay, so lots of customization here. And then just like the storm line, I can easily edit this and push my pipe network around. Okay, so really handy tool for working with pipe networks. I want to show you one other scenario with this. When it's a straightforward run and we're saying, hold constant slopes downstream or upstream, that's one thing. But what about when we've got something like this, where we've got some laterals coming off of our main line? And you've got, say, a structure perhaps in the middle of it or at the end of the line that you want to hold the invert on. You've designed that invert, and we want to hold that in place now. So I can come here, and this time we'll select it in plan view. I'm going to start here. You notice it highlights and profile as well. And then we're going to grab that whole lateral run. Now it's going to grab that structure 6. That was in our mainline design as well. But now we're just designing these laterals. Okay, and again, I get this table interface. And what I might be after here is to make sure that structure 6, the invert doesn't change on it. So you might have noticed it when I did that zoom option. So we've got zoom to plans, zoom to profiles. You can jump to any structure or any sets of structures or pipes. We can zoom to those as well. In this case, though, I'm after this other option here of lock invert. And notice when I click this, what's going to happen, let me put my sump column right next to my invert column. If I select lock invert, the invert is going to become a fixed value. Now I can type in and edit it, but it won't recalculate. And the sump is going to float or be the calculated value. Okay? It's like this option up here, the structures, the invert or sump, but I can do it for just one structure at a time. So lock invert. Now I can hold the invert of structure 6, and I can grab the starting invert here for this structure. I'm going to tab through it. We drop that down 2 feet. We're going to go down at a 1%, then up at a 1%. And if I hit apply to this here, we're going to see that lateral, those shallow pipes move, and then the invert of structure 6 will hold. We'll do that again. We'll bring it down 1 more foot. Hit apply to this. Okay. So lots of control on my pipe networks. My whole selection, how I work with them, all kinds of options. So that is Pipe Designer. We just released some improvements to this a couple months back. We've got some other ones coming as well. Different ways where we can auto-calculate slopes, perhaps holding a constant pipe cover, or maybe say grab this structure or this pipe and calculate the slope by holding the starting and ending inverts, interpolate the slope basically across that whole thing, or assign slopes from the rule sets. A few other little handy tools we're going to add to it, but right now it's got a lot of features in it, and like I said, it's probably one of the most popular tools. Most of our customers who use this, once they start, they use it every day, every time they're using pipe networks anyway, and they kind of forget how it used to be, editing parts one at a time, right? So if you're not using pipe networks right now, you definitely should be. And the big limitations in them are this editing functionality. You got to come in here and change the sump elevation one at a time, one structure at a time. Then I've got to come to the part property or the pipe property, and I got to come here and change slope. And you can, like I said, you can do it in the pipe network Vista. You can open up this, but this is just the list of all the pipes and structures all at once. You're still editing everything one at a time here. You can't really design in a pipe run type scenario. So that is Pipe Designer. Why don't we move on? Let's talk about Parts Tagger. And this is the tool where I said it allows you to edit the properties of pipes and structures all at once. Right. So the first tool is about editing our design, thinking in terms of pipe runs. The second one is about all the metadata in our parts. And again, that's a great advantage of pipe networks. There's so much information each part can hold when it comes to exporting to tables or Excel or labeling or anything like that. But managing these properties is, again, rather tedious. So I'm not talking about the geometric properties like inverts or slopes, but all these other properties like, say I'm just trying to push a description, or maybe I'm changing the material or the casting or any number of things like that, okay? I'd have to come into the structure properties. I'd have to type these in one by one to get them to show up in my labels or my tables or anything like that. So Parts Tagger, what I can do is say, let's grab all these curb inlets, do a select similar. I've got all the curb inlets, and I need to assign particular casting for this jurisdiction. And maybe I also happen to have signed the wrong reference alignment or anything like that. So let's come into here to Parts Tagger. And here we get fairly simple interface. Again, I've got selection options up here. I could have selected by the entire network. I wanted to write the same value to every part. And then I've got a Structures tab and a Pipes tab. The structures have more properties to them, so probably more common. But here we were talking about, maybe there's a casting number I need to assign to all of these. Maybe a surface adjustment value. A lot of scenarios require dropping that rim by some kind of fixed value. Again, that's a manual thing. Maybe the reference alignment itself, that was set to the wrong thing. Okay. And as I do that, you see up here, all those casting values now show up. Okay. The station and offset. Now I had switched it to the side road alignment, that one right over here. And of course, some of those aren't showing up. So we'll switch it back, and you'll see how quickly we can manipulate this stuff. So grab all those inlets again, go to Parts Tagger, say that was supposed to be Main Street, hit OK, then all those station offsets show up over here. What about labeling? I often tell people to use the description field in your parts to make little notes. Maybe there's a note you want to show in your labels, or maybe you don't use tables like this. You do way more of the information in your labeling. Station, offset, you name it. We can do that as well. So maybe just these three parts here. There's a note we want to add to the description where we're like salvaging something, salvaging the frame or the grate, right? So pushing that description to all these parts at once, now that shows up in my label style. I had that description field in my label style. The description field in those parts was empty. Okay, again, a thing we got to do one at a time. So managing that metadata is a big part of pipe networks, so that you can get tables, labels looking the way you want, and it can do it quickly for you. So last tool I want to show you is called Part Swapper. Those of you who work with pipe networks a lot, you know that if you need to change a size or a part, you've got to pick it in plan view, and then you've got to swap it out for the part you want. And you got to do that for each and every one of them. So again, it's this one at a time kind of editing. And with parts, we have to actually swap them only in plan view. So I might be working in profile view, but I got to jump over to plan view and think of it that way to change my parts. But with Part Swapper, I can come in here, and then it's going to prompt me, select parts in plan or profile views. I can do all of this at once. So like say this set of 36-inch RCP. I can run a window select around those, and then maybe in plan we've got all of these parts as well. I can do it either one or both at the same time. Okay, so a bunch of pipes, a bunch of structures all at once, and a pretty simple interface. Right at the top here, I've got the selection method to by selection. I could collect more parts. I could come back out here and grab a few more parts if I needed to. Or I could do entire network. What if you were swapping out the structure type for your entire network? You wouldn't even have to go and select them. Just grab the entire network and do it that way. And then down here, which parts am I swapping? I've got 8 structures and 5 pipes. I choose my parts list. It's my storm sewer parts list in my drawing. My replacement structure, those we want to be catch basins, curb inlets right here. And then that 36-inch RCP needs to switch to a 48-inch RCP. So that whole line of pipes there. I hit OK to this. You're going to see all those parts in profile update. Everything down here are curb inlets, right? So those are things we're wasting time on, editing, swapping parts one at a time. Really shouldn't take our time with that. So Again, Pipe Network's great tools. They're nice 3D parts, lots of information in them, but they're not really design tools, and editing of them is a really tedious thing. That's what we're addressing here with these Pipe Network tools in the CIM Project Suite. So if you guys don't have this, if you do have it, make sure you can go get the latest release. Like I said, we did just do a bug release last week, but a couple months ago we had a number of new features to our tools as well. But if you don't have it, and you're wondering how you get it, you simply go to CTC Software, CIM Project Suite, download. There's free trials. Some of those tools in there are free themselves. Part Swapper is a free tool indefinitely, and then the other ones are free during the trial period. If you're curious about these tools, you can look on our website. There's all kinds of detailed little videos and information about them.